My friend bought a house at 26 because everyone told her renting was throwing money away. 10 years later, she sold it. And after the mortgage, the repairs, the closing costs going in, and the agent fees going out, she'd built less wealth than if she'd just rented the exact same place and invested the difference every month. Nobody told her that. Not her parents, not her realtor. Not one single finance video, because every finance video she watched told her the answer with total confidence. Buy always. It's the smartest financial decision you'll ever make. Here's the part that should actually bother you. Every rent vs buy video on the internet gives you one confident answer. Buy always, or rent always. And none of them tell you the answer changes completely depending on your city, your rent, and your specific numbers. Two different finance channels ran the exact same math format on the exact same topic this year and landed on opposite conclusions. Neither one told their viewers why. I'm going to give you the one number that actually decides this for you. It takes 10 seconds to calculate. I'll show you exactly why it works with real math, not vibes. And by the end, you'll know exactly which side of it you're standing on, and whether that even matters as much as you think. Search, "Should I rent or buy?" and you'll get a wall of contradictions. One channel runs the numbers, and buying wins, not even close. The renter is tens of thousands of dollars behind by year 10. Another channel, same format, same fictional couple, usually named something like Jake and Marcus, runs slightly different starting numbers and renting wins instead, with the renter actually ahead in liquid net worth 20 years out. Same math, same style of video, opposite conclusion, and both of them are technically correct for their assumptions. That's not one of them being wrong. That's the actual truth nobody says out loud. This was never a "which is better" question. It's a "what are your numbers" question. Home prices, rent, interest rates, and how long you're staying all swing the answer hard enough to flip it completely. And there's one calculation that tells you which side you're on before you ever open a spreadsheet. It's called the price-to-rent ratio, and it's stupidly simple. Take the price of a home you'd actually buy. Divide it by what you'd pay to rent that same place for a full year. Say the house costs $250,000 and a comparable rental nearby runs $1,200 a month. That's $1,400 a year. $250,000 divided by $14,400 is 17.4. Now take a house in a hot metro, $650,000, renting for $2,200 a month, $26,400 a year. $650,000 divided by that is 24.6. Here's what those numbers mean. Under 15, buying is usually the clear winner. Rent is expensive relative to home prices, which means you're overpaying a landlord instead of building equity, and the math tilts hard toward owning. Above 20, renting usually wins. You're paying a massive premium just to own instead of rent, and no amount of appreciation reliably closes that gap fast enough to matter. Between 15 and 20 is a genuine toss-up that comes down to how long you're staying and what else the math tells you, which is exactly what the rest of this video is going to unpack. Our first example, at 17.4, leans buy but sits close to the toss-up zone. Our second, at 24.6, leans rent, hard, no real argument the other way. Same country, same year, opposite answer, purely because the local numbers are different. That's the whole video in one calculation, and almost nobody leads with it. Let's actually run one of these so you see why the ratio holds up, using a house sitting right in that toss-up zone. Take a $350,000 house. 20% down is $70,000, financed over 30 years at 6.5%. Your monthly payment, principal and interest, is $1,770. Here's the part every home buying video buries. You are not ahead the day you close. Closing costs run 2 to 5% of the price. On this house, that's $7,000 to $1,750 gone before you've unpacked a single box. That's not equity. That's just the cost of admission. Break that monthly payment down. $1,517 of it goes straight to the bank as interest. Only $253 actually chips away at what you owe. You didn't buy equity on day one. You bought a bill with a tiny equity rounding error attached to it. Meanwhile, that $70,000 down payment, if it had gone into an index fund instead, growing at a historical 8%, would be worth $151,000 in 10 years, on its own, untouched. That's not money you lost by buying. That's the price of the trade, and it's the number that never makes it onto a thumbnail. So does that mean buying is a bad trade? Not necessarily, because there's one thing a mortgage does that a brokerage account never will. It lets you earn returns on money you don't actually have. Go back to that same $350,000 house. 10 years in, assuming a modest 3.5% annual appreciation, nothing dramatic, just normal, that house is worth about $494,000. Your loan balance, after 10 years of payments, has dropped to roughly $237,000. Subtract one from the other, and your equity is about $256,000. You put down $70,000. 10 years later, that stake has turned into $256,000 in equity, a 3.66x multiple, which works out to almost 14% annualized growth on your actual down payment. Compare that to the same $70,000 sitting in an index fund at 8%. It would have grown to about $151,000, a 2.16x multiple. The house wins on this specific measure by a wide margin. Here's why. You're earning appreciation on the full $350,000 asset, not just your $70,000 stake. The bank's $280,000 is working for you, too. That's leverage, and it's the single biggest advantage buying has that almost never gets explained clearly. It's also worth saying plainly, this comparison only counts the down payment. It doesn't cancel out everything you paid in interest, taxes, and maintenance along the way to get there, which is exactly what the next section is about. Every buying calculator budgets maintenance the same lazy way, 1% of the home's value a year. On our $350,000 house, that's $3,500 a year, or about $290 a month. Some years that's generous. You'll spend it on air filters, a leaky faucet, touch-up paint. Other years, it isn't close. A new roof runs $8,000 to $15,000. A dead HVAC system is $5,000 to $10,000. A foundation issue can run north of $12,000, and it doesn't wait for a year when you've got room in the budget. It shows up whenever it wants. A renter facing any of those exact same problems makes one phone call. The landlord eats the bill. That's not a small detail. Over the life of a mortgage, a homeowner who doesn't set aside real money for the bad years isn't saving anything. They're just borrowing time against a bill with no due date printed on it. This is why the price-to-rent ratio matters more than any single year's math. It's already accounting for the fact that, on average, ownership carries costs renting simply doesn't have. The ratio isn't a shortcut around the maintenance question. It's already baked the maintenance question in. Here's the twist almost nobody says honestly. Even when the math clearly favors renting and investing the difference, most people don't. The gap between rent and a mortgage payment doesn't sit in an index fund. It becomes a nicer apartment, a better car, dinner out 3 times a week instead of 1. A mortgage forces the saving automatically every single month, whether you feel like it or not. Renting requires you to force it yourself, for years, including the months the market drops 20%, and every instinct you have says pull the money out and wait it out in cash. That's not a hypothetical. It's the actual, documented reason home ownership tends to build more wealth for the average person than the theoretical spreadsheet says it should. Not because owning beats renting on paper in every scenario, but because a mortgage is a forced savings plan wearing a house as a disguise, and most renters never build the discipline to match it on their own. So the real question was never, which one wins on paper? It's, will I actually do the thing the winning strategy requires every month, for a decade or more? Answer that honestly, and the ratio tells you the rest. So, let's make this concrete. Renting is the smarter move if any of these are true for you. Your price-to-rent ratio comes out above 20. You're not confident you'll stay put for at least 5 to 7 years. The point where closing costs and early mortgage interest finally stop dragging you down. Or you know yourself well enough to admit you won't actually invest the difference unless something forces you to. Buying is the smarter move if your ratio comes out under 15. You're planning to stay a decade or more, long enough for the fixed payment and the leverage to fully do their work. Or you genuinely want the forced savings structure because you've tried the invest the difference plan before and it didn't survive contact with real life. And if you land in that 15 to 20 toss-up zone like our $350,000 example did, the honest answer is that either choice is defensible and the tiebreaker isn't the math anymore. It's how long you're staying and how disciplined you actually are, not which YouTube video you watched last. So here's what changes once you know this. You stop asking finance channels whether you should rent or buy because that question was never answerable from the outside. Not by me, not by anyone running a hypothetical couple named Jake and Marcus through a spreadsheet. You calculate your own price-to-rent ratio for the actual house and the actual rent sitting in front of you. You ask how long you're really staying honestly, not optimistically, and you ask yourself, not a script, not a video, whether you'll actually invest the difference if you don't buy, because that answer matters as much as the math does. My friend's house didn't make her poorer because buying was the wrong move in general. It made her poorer because nobody showed her the number before she signed, and nobody made her be honest about how long she'd actually stay. Now, you have the number. Go do the division.